are supposed to sound. It came in slow, like something pulling itself out of water. And by the time I understood what I was hearing, my pen had already rolled off the chart I was signing. 3:12 in the morning. I remember the exact number because the clock above the nurse's station at St. Bonaventure has a tick that lands a half-second behind the digital readout. And that lag had been driving me crazy for 6 hours. My name is Wren Holloway. I am 29 years old. I have been a registered nurse for 4 years. And on the night the world changed, I was the only person assigned to the 7th floor step-down unit because Marisol had called out with her daughter's fever, and Devin, my charge nurse, had gone 2 floors down to help with a code that ended badly enough that I could hear the elevator carrying him back up before I saw him. The morgue alarm is not a sound most nurses know. It lives in the basement, behind 2 sets of magnetic doors. And the only reason I recognized it was because my orientation 8 months earlier had included a 30-second walkthrough during which a tired security officer named Pak had pointed at a red panel and said, "That one means a body's moving when it shouldn't be," and then laughed in a way that suggested he had told the joke 100 times. I had laughed too. You laugh at things in hospitals because the alternative is to feel them. I keyed my radio. "Security, this is 7 East. I'm hearing the morgue tone up here. Is that a drill?" Static. Then Pak's voice, but not the way I remembered it. "Wren, stay on the floor. Lock the stairwell. Do not come down." I had not told him my name. He had read it off the assignment board, the way he always did at shift change. But he had never used it like that, low and flat, like a word he was trying not to spend. "Pak, what's happening?" "Lock the stairwell, Wren." The line cut. I stood at the station with my hand still on the radio, and I looked down the long corridor of 7 East, where 12 patients slept behind half-open doors, and 1 cardiac monitor in room 712 beeped at a rhythm I had memorized, the way you memorize a song you didn't choose. Mr. Adler in 712. 81, post-ME, suite, asked me every night if my mother knew I worked these hours. Mrs. Quay in 706, hip replacement, restless. The Bautista twins in 709 and 710, both recovering from the same car accident, both 19. Both convinced they were going to be discharged together by Friday. I knew every name on the board because I'd written every name on the board. Devin stepped off the elevator. He had blood on the cuff of his scrubs, a small dark crescent, and he was not looking at me the way he usually did, which was with the mild irritation of a man who thought I asked too many questions. He was looking past me at the stairwell door. "Did you hear the morgue?" I said. "I heard it." He walked to the door, tried the handle, then pulled his badge and tapped it against the reader until a magnet clicked into lock. "I need you to stay calm." "I am calm." "You're not. You just sound calm. That's different." He turned. His face had gone the color of old paper. "There was a patient downstairs. He coded twice. The second time he came back wrong." "Wrong how?" "He bit Dr. Reyes." The alarm kept rising from somewhere beneath our feet, and Mr. Adler's monitor beeped its patient rhythm down the hall. And I understood, in the small, precise way that nurses understand things, that the night I had walked into at 6 was not the night I was going to walk out of. Section 2, 700 words. Devin was not a dramatic man. He had been an Army medic before nursing school, and he treated drama the way he treated expired saline, with a tight mouth and a careful disposal. So when he said he came back wrong, he meant it as data, not a story. That was the part that frightened me. I have worked codes. I have seen people return from the edge with their pupils blown and their language gone, and their hands reaching for objects that were not in the room. None of that is wrong. That is brain. That is hypoxia. That is the body negotiating with what it lost. Wrong was a different word. Wrong was Devon's word, and Devon did not waste words. "Where is Reyes now?" I asked. 3 South. They sedated him. He was screaming about his arm. How bad was the bite? Through the lab coat, through the sleeve of his scrubs. Ren, the man took a piece out of him. I had pulled my phone from my pocket without deciding to. No signal bars. The little Wi-Fi symbol blinked the way it blinks when the hospital network is rebooting, which it does every Tuesday at 2:30 and never at 3:12 on a Thursday. I set the phone face down on the counter because I did not want to keep looking at it. "Okay," I said. I heard myself say it. Okay is the word nurses use when nothing is okay. It's a placeholder. It buys you the 3 seconds you need to decide which patient to walk toward first. Okay, what's the plan? The plan is, we stay on this floor. We don't move patients. We don't open the stairwell. Security is locking down the building from the bottom up. They want everybody where they are. Devon, we have 12 patients and 2 nurses. If something gets onto this floor, nothing is getting onto this floor. You don't know that. He looked at me, and for the first time in 8 months of working nights together, I saw him afraid. Not startled, not stressed. Afraid in the way that lives in the back of a person's eyes and waits to be invited forward. He invited it forward now. "No," he said. "I don't." The intercom clicked. A woman's voice recorded. The same voice that announces fire drills and code grays and the occasional lost child in the lobby. "Attention. Code silver, all floors. Code silver, all floors. Shelter in place. Do not use elevators. Do not use stairwells. Await further instruction." Code silver was active shooter. We had drilled it twice since I had started. The drills had been clumsy and a little embarrassing, with people hiding under desks and laughing at each other's knees. Nobody was laughing now. Down the hall, a door opened. Mrs. Quay, in her hospital gown, and the green socks with the rubber treads, leaning on the frame of 706. "Honey," she called, "is there a fire?" "No fire, Mrs. Quay. Please go back to bed. I'll come check on you in a minute." The lights flickered. "I know. We're fine. Please, back to bed." She studied me the way older women study young women who are lying for kind reasons, and then she nodded once and stepped back into her room. I loved her for that nod. I have thought about that nod many times since. Devon was already moving. "I'll take rooms 707 through 712. You take 701 through 706. Quick rounds, vitals if you can get them without waking anyone. Eyes on color and breathing. If anyone is febrile above 101, flag the chart. We're going to want to know who's hot before this gets worse." "Why fever?" He paused at the threshold of 707. Reyes was 104 within 6 minutes of the bite. He went into the room. I stood at the counter, and I felt the floor under my shoes the way you feel a floor when you suddenly do not trust the building. Then I picked up my penlight, and I started down the hall towards 701, and I began to count the people I was going to have to keep alive. Room 701 was Mr. Faraj, 67, admitted for observation after a fall. He was asleep with the television still on, muted, a cooking show flickering blue across his face. I took his pulse at the wrist without waking him. Steady, skin cool. I marked his chart and moved on. Room 702 was empty, the bed stripped, a discharge from earlier in the evening that no one had restocked. Room 703 was Elena Mosby, 44, post-surgical, sleeping with her hand curled around the call button the way some patients do, as if the button itself were the nurse. Pulse steady, skin cool, chart marked. Room 704 was where I stopped. The patient was a man named Cyril Okafor, 58, admitted 3 days earlier for what the chart called altered mental status, etiology unclear. He had come in from a homeless outreach van with a low-grade fever and a confusion that had not resolved. I had taken care of him for 2 nights, and he had been gentle, apologetic, the kind of patient who said thank you every time you adjusted his pillow. Now he was sitting upright in the dark, eyes open, and when my penlight crossed his face, he did not blink. "Mr. Okafor?" He did not answer. His chest moved. His eyes tracked the light, but slowly, as if the light were arriving to him from somewhere far away. I stepped closer, and I felt the heat off him before I touched him. He was burning. The thermometer read 103.8 and climbing as I watched the decimal climb. "Mr. Okafor, can you hear me?" His mouth opened. No sound. His tongue moved against his teeth like he was tasting a word he could not find. I backed out of the room. I did not turn my back on him until the door was between us, and even then I felt the wrongness of him through the wood, the way you feel a draft through a wall. I keyed the radio. "Devon, 704. Patient is febrile, non-responsive, verbally tracking. I need you here." "On my way." I stood in the hallway, and I made myself breathe. 4 counts in, 4 counts out, the way I had learned in a yoga class I had attended exactly twice in nursing school. It worked the same way OK worked. It bought me seconds. Devon arrived at a fast walk. He looked in through the small window in the door, and his jaw set. "How long since you saw him last?" 11. He asked for ice chips. He was fine. He's not fine now. What do we do? We close this door, we tape the latch, we flag the room, and we keep going. "Devon, he's a patient." "Ren." He said my name the way Pac had said it on the radio, low and careful. "I know." We taped the latch. I wrote, "Do not enter" on a piece of printer paper in black marker, and slid it into the door's nameplate slot, where Cyril Okafor's name had been since Tuesday. I left his name there, underneath. I needed to know who was behind the door. I needed to keep knowing. Rooms 705 and 706 were clean. Mrs. Quay was back in bed, pretending to sleep with the dignity of a woman who knows she is being lied to. I sat for a moment on the edge of her chair, and I let her pretend, and she let me pretend. And we breathed together in the dim room for the length of 1 slow minute. When I came back out, Devon was waiting at the station with a clipboard and a face that had decided something. 3 so far, he said. 3 what? 3 febrile on this floor, Okafor and 2 of mine. The Bautista boy in 709, and Adler. Adler. My stomach dropped. How high? 102, climbing. He was fine at 11. They were all fine at 11. I went to 712 without asking permission to go, because Mr. Adler was mine, in a way that is hard to explain to people outside the work. He had been on the unit for 9 days. I had argued with the day team about his pain regimen. I had brought him a crossword book from the gift shop because his daughter had not visited, and he had said, in the careful voice of a man who did not want to complain, that the hours were long. He had told me about his wife, who had died 4 years ago, and about a dog named Buster who was waiting for him at his son's house. And he had asked me every single night if my mother knew I worked these hours. I always said yes. My mother had been dead since I was 23. He was awake when I came in. His eyes were too bright. His hair, which he combed every morning with a black plastic comb he kept on the bedside table, was damp at the temples. "Ren," he said. His voice was paper. "I don't feel right." "I know, Mr. Adler." I'm going to take care of you. My chest is hot. Inside, like I swallowed something. I'm going to get you some cool cloths. I'm going to give you something for the fever. Can you tell me your name and your birthday for me? Harold Adler, March 12th, 1943. Good, that's good. Ren. His hand found mine. His grip was stronger than it should have been for a man his age at the end of a fever spike. Something is wrong with this building. I did not answer right away. I have lied to patients before, the small mercies. You're doing great. The surgery went well. Your daughter is on her way. I could not lie to him. He had earned more than that from me. Yes, I said. Something is wrong. He nodded once, like Mrs. Quay had nodded. He closed his eyes. You stay smart, he said. You hear me? You stay smart, and you go home. Mr. Adler, promise me. I promise. I gave him acetaminophen through his IV port. I put a cool cloth on his forehead. I held his hand until his breathing evened out, and then I held it for another 60 seconds because I did not want to let go. And then I let go because Devin was at the door. Ren. He's stable, for now. It's not for now I'm worried about. We stepped into the hallway. Devin had pulled up the nursing tablet, and on the screen was the hospital's internal census map, the one that showed bed occupancy in real time. Half the icons on the lower floors had turned red. Red was not a color I had ever seen on that map. Red was not on the legend. What does red mean? I said. I don't know, but it started at the morgue and it's moving up. How fast? 2 floors in 11 minutes. Devin, we're on 7. I can count, Ren. The intercom clicked again. This time, it was not the recorded voice. It was a man, breathing hard, and behind his breathing was a sound I did not want to identify. This is Director Halsey. All staff, this is not a drill. We are in a containment event. Do not repeat. Do not open any sealed door. Do not approach febrile patients without barrier. If you are on floors 1 through 5, move to the nearest stairwell and go up. If you are on 6 or above, hold position. Hold position. Hold. The intercom cut. Devin and I looked at each other. Up, I said. He said go up. They're herding everyone toward us. We have 12 patients and 2 nurses. 11 now. Bautista in 709 just stopped breathing. I had not heard a code called. There had been no overhead page. Devin saw the question on my face before I asked it. I didn't call it, he said quietly. I'm not going to. There is a thing they teach you in nursing school that they do not call by its real name. They call it triage, and they teach it as a system of colored tags and decision trees. And they show you videos from disaster sites where calm people in vests sort the wounded into categories. What they do not tell you is that triage, in its real form, is the arithmetic of mercy. You add up what you have. You subtract what you cannot save. You divide your hands by the number of bodies that need them. The remainder is what you carry home. I had never done real triage. I had done the classroom version. I had done the drill version, standing in the hallway of 7 East at 3:31 in the morning, with Devin telling me he had not called a code on a 19-year-old boy because calling a code would bring more people up to a floor that might already be lost. I understood that I was about to do the real version, and that the remainder I carried home was going to be heavy for the rest of my life. How many are febrile now? I asked. 4, Alcafor, Adler, Bautista in 710, the brother, and Mr. Faraj in 701. Faraj was cool 10 minutes ago. He's not cool now. What's the threshold? For what? For when we stop treating and start sealing. Devin did not answer for a long moment. He was looking down the hallway, at the doors, at the names. I could see him doing the math too. I could see him hating it. 103 and climbing, he said. And tracking without responding. Those two together. That's our line. Okay? Ren. I said, okay, Devin. I need you to actually be okay. I'm not okay. I'm functional. They're not the same thing. You taught me that. He almost smiled. It was the worst smile I had ever seen on him. We worked. We moved. I checked Mrs. Key again, who was cool, and Elena Mosby, who was cool, and a new admission in 705 named Theo Park, 24, appendectomy, who was cool and asleep and snoring lightly in a way that made me want to sit down on the floor and cry. I did not cry. I marked the chart, and I moved on. At 3:42, Mr. Farage's door rattled. I had taped it 10 minutes earlier, after his temperature hit 103.4, and he stopped answering to his name. The tape held. The handle moved against it, twice, then stopped. Then moved again, harder. I stood across the hallway with my back against the opposite wall, and I watched the door breathe. Devin came up beside me. He had a fire extinguisher in his hands. I had not seen him get it. Is that? It's what we have. Devin. I know. The handle rattled a third time, and then there was a sound from inside the room that I'm not going to describe in detail because I have promised myself I would not let that sound live in other people's heads the way it lives in mine. It was not a scream. A scream is a human sound. This was the sound a body makes when the thing inside it is no longer asking permission. Okay, Devin said. Okay, the tape is holding. For how long? Long enough. Long enough for what? He looked at me. For us to decide what we're doing about the others. The others. Okafor, Adler, Bautista. 3 doors. 3 people I had charted, medicated, comforted, lied to gently and truthfully by turn. 3 people who, if Devin's line was right, were no longer the people whose names were in the slots on their doors. We're not killing them, I said. I didn't say that. You were about to. I was about to say we seal them. There is a difference. Is there? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. We both knew the answer was for now. We sealed the doors. We used the rolls of red biohazard tape from the supply closet, the kind meant for marking contaminated linen. And we crossed each door twice, top to bottom and side to side. I wrote the time on each piece of tape with the same black marker I had used for Do Not Enter on Cyril Okafor's door an hour earlier. 3:48, 3:51, 3:54. When I came to Mr. Adler's door, my hand shook so badly that the marker skipped, and I had to start the number over. Devin watched me do it. He did not offer to take the marker. He understood that this was a thing I had to do with my own hand. Inside 712, Mr. Adler was no longer asking me to stay smart. I could hear him moving against the bed frame. The IV pump was alarming, the slow, steady tone that means a line has been pulled. I did not look through the window. I had looked through the window at 7:04, and I had seen Cyril Okafor pressed against the glass with his eyes open and his mouth open and nothing recognizable behind either. And I had decided that I had a finite number of those images I could carry, and I was going to spend the rest of them carefully. When the doors were sealed, we walked back to the station. Devin set the fire extinguisher on the counter. I sat down on the rolling stool and I put my hands flat on the desk and I made myself look at them. 2 hands, 10 fingers, the small scar on my left thumb from a kitchen knife when I was 16. The hands were still mine. The hands were still working. The hands were going to have to keep working. How many clean? Devin asked. 7. Faraj is sealed. Okafor sealed. Bautista 709 sealed. Bautista 710 sealed. Adler sealed. That's 5 down. 5 clean and asleep. Plus Key and Park and Mouse be awake or near awake. 7. 8 if we count us. We're not patients. Tonight everyone's a patient, Ren. I looked at him. He was leaning against the counter with his arms crossed and his eyes on the elevator bank, and I noticed for the first time that he had positioned himself between me and the elevators without making it look like he had. Devin had been doing that all night. I had not seen it until now. Why are you standing there? I asked. Habit. Army habit? Yeah. Were you a medic the whole time? Mostly. Mostly? He almost smiled again. Ren, we're going to be here a while. I'll tell you the other parts if we make it to morning. Promise? Promise. The elevator dinged. We both went still. The elevators had been locked since Code Silver. The display above the doors had been dark for 40 minutes. Now the right-hand car was moving. We watched the number climb. 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, Devin said quietly. It's going to be 7. Who has override? Security, administration, maintenance. Could be Pak. Could be. Could be not. He picked up the fire extinguisher. I picked up the only thing on the counter that resembled a weapon, which was a metal clipboard. And I felt the ridiculousness of it in my hand, and I held it anyway. The doors opened. It was Puck. He was alone. He had a bloody bandage wrapped around his left forearm, a security radio in his right hand, and a face that had aged 10 years in one night. He stepped out of the elevator slowly, with his palms visible, the way you approach a frightened animal. Don't, he said. Don't swing, it's me. Your arm, Devin said. I know. How long ago? 20 minutes, maybe 25. Pak. I know, Devin. I know what it means. I came up here because I needed to tell you what's happening before I can't tell you anymore. Pak sat down on the floor with his back against the wall opposite the nurse's station. He did this because he did not want to be standing when his legs failed him, and because he wanted us to be above him in the room, and because, I think, he wanted to make himself smaller for the conversation he was about to have. He set the radio on the floor beside him. He kept his bandaged arm across his lap. He looked for a moment, like a man waiting for a bus. It started in the morgue at 2:52, he said. Not 3:12. 3:12 was when the alarm finally tripped. There's a 20-minute delay on the magnetic sensors. Nobody bothered to fix it because nobody ever thought it would matter. The body was a John Doe brought in from a county pickup yesterday afternoon. Pronounced at the scene, refrigerated at 4:30. Sat in the drawer for 10 hours. Then the drawer opened from the inside. From the inside, I repeated. From the inside. He looked at me with a kind of tired patience, like a teacher who had already accepted that the lesson was going to be hard. The attendant on duty was a kid named Mateo, 22 years old. He'd been working there for 3 months. He didn't make it out of the room. The body, the John Doe, it got into the elevator shaft through the service corridor. I don't think it knew where it was going. I think it just went up. How many infected now? In the building? I don't know. The cameras went dark on 3 around 3:30. The ER went dark at 3:36. I was on 5 when I got bit. I came up the stairwell using my override. I think I'm the only one who came up. Everybody else who could move was going down, toward the lobby, because that's what the announcement told them to do before Halsey got on the line. Halsey didn't know yet. By the time he knew, the lobby was already... He stopped. He breathed for a moment. The lobby is bad. Outside the hospital? Devin asked. I don't know. The exterior cameras went dark at 3:40. There were sirens before that. A lot of sirens. Not just here. Not just here, I repeated. It came out smaller than I meant it. I'm sorry, Ren. It's not your fault. I let the kid laugh at the morgue alarm joke. 8 months you've been here. I made the joke 8 times. I thought it was funny. It was funny, I said. It was a good joke. He smiled. The smile cracked something in his face that he had been holding together. And I watched him decide, in real time, not to let it crack all the way. There's something else, he said. There's a stairwell on the north side of the building. The one nobody uses because it lets out into the loading dock. The magnetic locks on that stairwell run on a separate circuit. They didn't get the lockdown signal. If you can get to it, you can get out. Not now. Maybe not for hours. But when the building quiets down, that's your way. Quiets down, Devin said. They stop moving when there's nothing to follow. Sound, movement, light. If you go dark and quiet long enough, they drift. I watched it on 3 before the cameras went. They drifted. How long is long enough? I don't know. An hour, 2, more. Pock, I said. Your arm. I know. How much time? He looked down at the bandage. He lifted it, just a little, just enough for us to see the edge of the wound, and the dark lines beginning to crawl up the inside of his wrist toward the elbow. He let the bandage fall back. Less than an hour, he said. Probably less than 30 minutes. I can feel it. What do you say to a man who has come upstairs to give you a map and a deadline and his own life? I do not know what the right thing is. I know what I said, which was, "Thank you, Pock." And I know what he said back, which was, "Don't thank me yet, I'm not done." He was not done. He told us about the north stairwell access code, which was different from the one on the main stairwells because it ran on the maintenance system. He told us where the manual override was for the loading dock door. He told us that the security desk in the basement had a locker with a master key ring, and that the locker was probably unreachable now, but that the freight elevator on the back side of the building still ran on its own circuit if you had a key. He gave Devin his badge. He gave me his radio. The radio still works on the channel security uses, he said. Channel 4. If anybody else is alive in the building, they're on 4. Don't talk on it unless you have to. They'll hear you, but other things will hear you too. The infected, they react to sound through walls. Don't ask me how. I watch them do it. Okay, I said. Ren, one more thing. He looked at me very steadily. When it happens, when I start to turn, I need you to put me somewhere I can't get out of. The supply closet by the elevators has a lock that works from the outside. Put me in there. Pock, don't argue with me, please. I came up here so I could ask. I would rather ask you than have it happen in front of you without asking. I nodded. I did not trust my voice. Devin crouched down so he was on Pock's level. How are you doing on pain? It's not pain. It's cold. It's coming up my arm cold, like the arm's not mine anymore. I can give you something. No, I need to stay clear. I need to be able to walk to the closet. Pock? Devin, let me walk. Devin nodded. He put a hand on Pock's good shoulder briefly, and then he stood up and went to the station and started doing what nurses do when they cannot fix a thing, which was paperwork. He started writing down everything Pock had said. Codes, routes, names. He wrote it in the margins of a discharge form because we did not have a clean notebook. And that small absurdity, that we were planning a survival on the back of someone's hernia repair, almost undid me. I sat down on the floor next to Pock. not touching him. Close enough. "Tell me something good," I said. He looked at me. "What?" "Tell me something good. Anything. From your life. I want to know one good thing about you before—" "Just one good thing, Pac." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "My daughter is 6. Her name is Lena. She lost her first tooth last week, and she wrote a letter to the tooth fairy asking if the tooth fairy had a job or if it was just the teeth. She wanted to know if the tooth fairy needed a resume." I laughed. It came out broken, but it was a laugh. "What did you write back?" I told her the tooth fairy was self-employed and worked from home. She seemed satisfied. "That's a good thing, Pac." "Yeah, it is." "Where is she now?" "With her mother, across town. Her mother and I we're not together. But Lena's safe. I called when I was on 5, before I came up. She's safe." "Good." "Ren." "Yeah. Thank you for asking." He stood up about 12 minutes later. He walked to the supply closet on his own. He went inside without looking back at me, which I understood was a gift. I closed the door. I turned the lock. I wrote PAK on a piece of tape and stuck it to the door because he had a name, and the name mattered, and I was not going to forget it. After the closet door closed, the floor went into a kind of silence I had never heard in a hospital. Hospitals do not get quiet. There's always a pump, a vent, a printer, a voice down a hall, the building exhaling in the small mechanical ways buildings exhale. But for about 90 seconds after I locked Pac in, 7 East held its breath. And I held mine with it. And I listened to my own pulse in my ears and understood it was the loudest sound in the building. Then, from inside the closet, something hit the door once. Not hard, almost polite. Then nothing. Devin was at the station, watching me. He did not say anything. He waited for me to come back to him on my own time. I came back when I was ready, which was not soon, but was sooner than I expected. "Okay," I said. "What now?" "Now we wait for the floor to quiet. Pac said an hour. We give it 2. 2 hours with 5 sealed rooms and 3 awake patients in a closet. And us. And us. And we use the time." "How?" He turned the tablet around so I could see it. The census map. The red icons had climbed to floor 6. Floor 7 was still gray. There were 2 red icons on 6 that were not moving. There were several that were. "They'll come up the stairwells if anything draws them," Devin said. "The stairwells are locked from this side, but locks aren't forever. We need to be ready to move when the window opens, and we need to know where we're moving the patients to." "We're moving the patients." "Ren, we can't leave them." "I know we can't leave them. I'm asking how. Mosby is post-op. Park is post-op. Key is post-hip replacement and 78 years old. We can't carry them down 7 flights and across a loading dock." "We don't have to carry them down 7. We have to get them to the freight elevator. Pac's badge runs it. That's 1 flight in the back of the building, away from the main stairwells." "And from the freight elevator?" "Ground floor, back hallway, loading dock door, manual override, out." "Into what?" He was quiet. "Devin, into what?" "Into whatever is outside. I don't know what's outside. I know it's better than in here." "You don't know that either." "No, I don't." I looked down the hallway. 5 sealed doors, 3 quiet doors. The closet door with Pac's name on it. The faint smell of the cleaning solution the night janitor had used on the floor at midnight, before any of this, when my biggest problem had been a charting backlog and a coffee maker that was making coffee that tasted like aluminum. "Okay," I said. "We move. But we tell them first." "Tell who?" Quay, Park, Mosby. They're awake or close to it. They get to know. They get to choose. Wren, if they panic, they get to choose, Devon. He looked at me for a long time. Then he nodded. You take Key and Mosby. I'll take Park. We tell them the situation in plain words. We don't dress it up. We give them 10 minutes to decide, and then we move. What if one of them says no? Then we leave them with water and a sealed door and the radio set to channel 4, and we tell them how to use it. That's not leaving them with much. It's leaving them with the truth. That's more than most people get in a building like this on a night like this. I went to Mrs. Quay's room first, because she had nodded at me at 3:15 and let me lie to her, and because she had earned the truth before anyone else on the floor. Mrs. Quay was awake. She had her bedside lamp on, low, and a paperback in her lap that she was not reading. She looked up when I came in, and she did not pretend to be surprised. "Sit down, honey," she said. I sat on the edge of her bed. I did not know how to start, so I just started. "Mrs. Quay, there's a containment event in the hospital. There's an infection. It's making people violent, and it's spreading fast. We have it sealed on this floor for now, but we don't know how long that holds. We have a way out through the freight elevator and the loading dock, but it means moving you, and moving will be hard on the hip, and there's risk going down, and there's risk staying up here. I'm telling you the truth because you deserve it, and because I want you to choose." She listened all the way through. She did not interrupt. When I finished, she closed the paperback and set it on the bedside table, on top of the black plastic comb that was not there because that was a different room. And then she looked at me with the same look she had given me at 3:15. "Is Harold all right?" she asked. I had not expected the question. I had not known she knew Mr. Adler. I should have known. They had been on the floor together for over a week. And Mrs. Key was the kind of woman who knew the names of the people in the rooms around her. "He's sealed," I said. "He's not himself anymore." She nodded once. She did not cry. I think she had decided, somewhere in the half hour since the lights had flickered, that she was not going to cry tonight. And she was going to keep that promise to herself. "I'll go with you," she said. "But I want you to do one thing for me first." "What?" "I want you to write down my daughter's phone number, in case I don't make it down, in case you do. I want you to call her and tell her I wasn't scared." "Mrs. Quay, I wasn't scared, Wren. I want her to know that. It matters to me that she knows that." I wrote the number down. I wrote it on the inside of my left forearm with the black marker because I did not have paper and because I did not want to lose it. The marker was cold on my skin. "Were you scared?" I asked. I did not know I was going to ask it until it was out. She thought about it. She actually thought about it, which I appreciated, because she could have given me the easy answer, and she didn't. "A little," she said. "But mostly I was sad. There's a difference." "Yes," I said. "There is." I went to Elena Mosby's room next. She was awake. She had heard me in the hallway. She listened to my speech, asked 2 questions, both practical. "Can I bring my phone? Will you give me something for pain before we move?" And then said yes. She said it like a woman placing an order at a restaurant. I loved her for that too. Theo Park, the appendectomy, was the hardest. He was 24. He cried. He asked if his mother had been called. He asked if there was any way to stay. Devon, who had taken his room, sat on the bed with him for 4 minutes that we could not afford, and answered every question in a voice so steady I almost did not recognize it. Theo said yes in the end. He said it through tears, but he said it. We had 3 patients to move. We had 1 freight elevator, 1 flight down. We had the back stairwell with a maintenance code. We had Pac's badge. We had the radio on channel 4. We had a fire extinguisher and a metal clipboard and 2 pairs of trembling hands. We had, by Devon's watch, 93 minutes until our self-imposed 2-hour quiet window opened. We started getting ready to move. Getting 3 post-surgical patients ready to move in a hospital that has gone hostile is a problem with no good solutions, only less bad ones. We could not use the wheelchairs because the wheelchairs made noise on the tile. We could not use the gurneys because the gurneys were worse. And because we could not fit a gurney into the freight elevator with 2 nurses and a patient and still close the door. We had to walk them. Or we had to mostly walk them, with us holding them up, with their IV poles disconnected and their lines capped and their drains pinned to their gowns, and with whatever pain medication we could safely give them on board. I prepped the meds at the Pyxis. The Pyxis still worked. The hospital's drug dispensing system ran on its own server, and apparently the infection had not reached the server room, which struck me as funny in a way I did not have time to enjoy. I pulled what I needed. I logged it under my own credentials because there was no one to log it under anyone else's, and because I had decided I was going to leave a record of this night in the system, whether or not anyone was alive to read it. Halloway WRN 418. Morphine, 4 milligrams IV, Quai acetaminophen, 650 milligrams PO, Park T, hydromorphone, 0.5 milligrams IV, Mosby E. 3 little lines of truth in a database somewhere. Devon was at the back stairwell, checking the door. He came back with his face set. "Door's clean," he said. I cracked it. Listened. Nothing on 8 above us. Something on 6 below, but it's far. Bottom of 6, maybe. Not climbing yet. Why not climbing? Nothing to climb toward. Yet. Yet. We make noise. It climbs. Then we don't make noise. Right. I gave Mrs. Quay her morphine. I watched her face soften. She closed her eyes for a moment and breathed out. And when she opened them again, she said, "All right, honey, let's go see about that elevator." I helped her sit up. I helped her put her feet on the floor. The green rubber tread socks. The hospital gown over a long-sleeved undershirt she had asked the day nurse to bring her from her overnight bag because she got cold. The robe over the gown. Slippers. I helped her stand. She gripped my forearm, the one with her daughter's number on it, and she squeezed once, which I think was on purpose. "You've got a good grip," I said. "I used to play tennis." "Of course you did." Elena Mosby walked on her own, with a hand on the wall. She was the youngest and the strongest and the most recently operated on, which was its own complication. But she was also stubborn in a way I was grateful for. She did not want to be carried. She wanted to walk out of the building she had walked into. Theo Park was the slowest. The appendectomy was fresh. He was nauseous from anxiety on top of the surgery, and he had to stop twice in his own room to breathe. Devon put one of Theo's arms over his shoulder and held him at the waist with the other arm, and walked him out into the hallway like a friend walking another friend home from a bar. I had a flash, watching them, of how much I did not know about Devon, and how much I wanted to know if we lived. We gathered at the stairwell door. "Listen to me," Devon said low. "We go single file. I'm first. Wren is last. Patients in the middle in the order we discussed. Mosby, Park, Key. No talking on the stairs. If you need to stop, tap the shoulder of the person in front of you. We go down 1 flight. We come out on 6 in the back hallway. The freight elevator is 40 feet from the stairwell door. We do not stop at the elevator door. We get in, we close. We go down to ground. We do not stop on ground. We go straight to the loading dock. Questions. There were no questions. There were only the small sounds of 4 people deciding to do a thing that they were not sure they could do. Devin opened the door. The stairwell smelled like concrete and old paint, the way back stairwells in hospitals always smell. But underneath there was something new. A faint coppery sweetness that did not belong in a stairwell, and that I did not let myself think about. The emergency lights were on, low and green, casting everyone's faces in a color that made us all look already dead. Devin went down first, one careful step at a time, his hand trailing the rail. Mosby behind him, then Park clinging to the rail with both hands. Then Key with her good hip leading and her bad hip following. Then me at the back with the fire extinguisher in one hand and the clipboard tucked under my arm because I had not been able to make myself put it down. The door closed behind us with a soft, hydraulic sigh. We waited at the landing for a count of 10, the way Devin had told us, listening. From below, far below, there was a sound like a hand dragging along a wall, and then nothing, and then the sound again, fainter, moving away. Devin held up a finger. We waited. The sound did not return. He pointed down. We descended. Halfway down the flight, Mrs. Quay's slipper caught on the lip of a step. She did not fall. She caught herself on the rail, hard, with a small, sharp intake of breath that was the loudest sound any of us had made so far. We all froze. I watched the back of Devin's head, 12 feet below me, go very still. From somewhere in the building, a long way off, something answered the sound of her breath with a sound of its own. Not close, not yet, but aware now, in a way it had not been aware a moment before. Devin turned his head. He mouthed, "Move." We moved. The door at the bottom of the flight was the back hallway of 6. Devin cracked it. He looked. He waited a long 4 seconds. Then he opened it and we slipped through one at a time and the door eased shut behind us. And we were on the 6th floor, in a hallway I'd only been in twice in 8 months because it was the hallway behind the imaging department. And there was no reason for a 7th floor nurse to be there. The freight elevator was 40 feet away, exactly as he had said. The hallway between us and it was empty. The hallway was also dark, in a way the 7th floor had not been dark. Half the overhead fluorescents were out. The emergency strips along the baseboards were on, casting a low red light along the floor. And in that light, the linoleum looked wet, which I did not investigate. We walked, quietly, slowly, in the order Devin had set. Mosby's breathing was even. Park's was not, but he was holding it together with a discipline I respected. Key was leaning on me now, her left arm hooked through my right, and her weight was more than I'd expected. I adjusted. I kept moving. Halfway down the hallway, there was a door on the left that was open. A patient room. The light inside was off. As we passed it, I made the mistake of looking in. There was a man in the bed. He was not moving. He was not, as far as I could tell in the half-second I looked, breathing. His eyes were open. He was looking at the ceiling. On the floor beside the bed was a second figure, on its hands and knees, also not moving, also looking at the ceiling, though from a different angle. Neither of them looked at us as we passed. I do not know why. I have thought about it many times. Maybe they were spent. Maybe they were listening for something they had not yet heard. Maybe the rules of how they noticed the living were not what Pac had thought they were. We reached the freight elevator. Devin tapped Pac's badge against the reader. The light blinked green. The doors slid open with a sound that, in the hallway's silence, was the sound of a train coming into a station. We got in, all 5 of us, Key against the back wall. Mosby beside her, Park against the side wall, breathing through his teeth, Devon at the panel, me at the door, with my hand on the close button, willing it to respond faster than it wanted to. The doors started to close, slowly. The freight elevator was old. It had no urgency. From down the hallway, the way we had come, something stepped out into the corridor. I saw it for less than 2 seconds. It was a person. It had been a person. It was wearing a maintenance uniform. Its head was turned at an angle that necks do not normally turn to, and its mouth was open, and it took one step toward us and then another. And then the elevator doors finished closing, and the car began to descend. And I let out a breath I had not known I was keeping in a separate compartment of my body for emergencies. Nobody spoke. The elevator was loud. Old freight elevators are loud. The motor whined. The cables sang. Every sound was a beacon. Devon's eyes were on the floor indicator above the door. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, G. The car stopped. The doors began to open. Devon held up a hand. He stepped to the side of the door. He waited. The doors finished opening onto the ground floor back hallway, which was darker than 6 had been, and quieter, and which smelled, now, unmistakably, of the thing the stairwell had only hinted at. He looked. He listened. He held up 4 fingers, then 3, then 2, then 1. He pointed left. We moved. The loading dock was 30 yards down the hallway, past a set of double doors marked Receiving. The hallway was empty. The hallway was empty the way a beach is empty after everyone has fled the water, which is to say, full of evidence. There was a stretcher on its side. There was a clipboard on the floor, pages fanned out, the pages flecked with something I did not look at directly. There was a single white shoe. We did not run. We could not run. Mrs. Quay's hip would not allow it, and Theo Park's incision would not allow it, and panic would not allow it. We walked. We walked at the pace of the slowest of us, which was key, and which Devon and I had silently agreed before we ever stepped into the stairwell, would be the pace of the entire operation. At the double doors marked Receiving, Devon paused again. He listened. He pushed one door open 6 inches. He looked. He nodded. We went through. The loading dock was a wide concrete bay with a metal rolling door at the far end. The dock had 2 trucks parked at it, both empty, both with their back doors open. The metal rolling door at the far end was closed and locked. But beside it, on the wall, was the manual override Pak had told us about. A red lever inside a glass case, the glass already broken, the lever halfway down. Somebody had tried to leave this way already. Somebody had been interrupted. Devon went to the lever. He looked at me. He looked at the patients. He looked back at the lever. On 3, he whispered. We pull, the door goes up, we go under. We do not wait for it to finish. We go under as soon as there's clearance for Key. Ren, you go first with K. I follow with Park and Mosby, yes? Yes. 1, 2, 3. He pulled the lever. The door began to rise. It rose slower than I wanted it to, and faster than I had feared it might. The cold of the outside came in under it first, and with the cold came the sound of the world we had not been in for 9.5 hours, which was a sound of sirens far away, and of nothing close, and of wind moving across an empty parking lot, and of a single distant voice shouting a single distant word I could not make out. The door rose to Key's height. We went. We came out into the loading dock's lower apron, a sloped concrete ramp that led down to the staff parking lot. The lot was 3/4 full. Cars sat under sodium lights, frosted with the early morning damp, untouched and ordinary, as if their owners were still inside at the ends of long shifts. None of the cars were moving. None of the cars were occupied. The hospital behind us rose dark against a sky that was starting, just barely, to consider becoming morning. The east edge of the sky was the color of old paper held up to a lamp. I helped Mrs. K down the ramp. She was breathing hard. The morphine was wearing thin at the edges. She did not complain. Devin brought Theo Park down behind us, then went back up to bring Elena Mosby, who had insisted on being last so that we did not have to split our attention. We gathered at the bottom of the ramp, in the shadow of the loading dock. And for the first time in 2 hours, we were all 5 of us standing under an open sky. Mrs. Quay laughed. It was a small laugh, almost a cough, but it was a laugh. "Honey," she said, "the air is beautiful." "Yes," I said, "it is." Devin was already scanning the lot. "We need a vehicle. Pac's badge won't start a car, but somebody on this lot left keys. Somebody always leaves keys." "Where?" Mosby asked. "Visor, cup holder, under the seat." We try driver's doors first. Anything unlocked, we check. And if nothing's unlocked. Then we walk to the edge of the lot, we find the bus shelter at the south corner, and we wait for daylight inside it. The shelter has glass on 3 sides. We see what comes. We decide from there. We started checking cars. Park leaned against the dock wall with Mosby beside him. Key sat down on the bottom step of the ramp with her hands folded in her lap. And she watched the eastern edge of the sky the way a person watches a kettle they are willing to boil. The 4th car I tried was unlocked. A silver sedan, 10 years old, a child's car seat in the back, a tissue box on the dash. The keys were not in it. I checked the visor. Empty. The cup holder. Empty. Under the seat. My fingers closed around a small plastic fob. "Devin," I called as quietly as I could. He came. He took the fob. He pressed the button. The car responded with a soft chirp that, in the open air of the parking lot, sounded like the loudest sound that had ever existed. We all froze. We listened. Nothing answered. We loaded. Kay in the front passenger seat because of her hip. Mosby and Park in the back, with Mosby in the middle so she could keep a hand on Park's incision if he needed it. Devin at the wheel. Me in the back on the driver's side, with the fire extinguisher between my knees, and Park's radio on my lap and the clipboard, finally, set down on the floor at my feet. Devin started the engine. It turned over on the first try. He let it idle for 3 seconds. He looked at me in the rear view. "Where do we go?" he asked. I had not let myself think about this. I had been so focused on the door, that I had not thought about what was past the door. "Pac said outside might not be better," I said. Pac said he didn't know. "South," Mrs. Quay said quietly from the front seat. "South to the river. There's a fire station 2 miles south on Linden. My nephew works there. If anyone is anywhere, he's there." Devin looked at me again. I nodded. He put the car in drive. We rolled out of the spot and toward the lot exit, slowly, headlights off, the sodium lights paling above us as the sky behind the hospital began, finally, to lift. I did not look back at the building. I did not look up at the 7th floor. I had promised Mr. Adler I would go home. I was keeping the promise the only way I had left. I called Mrs. Quay's daughter at 7:41 that morning from the fire station on Linden, with the number still legible on the inside of my left forearm. I told her Mrs. Key was alive. I told her Mrs. Key had not been scared, only sad, and that there was a difference and that her mother had wanted her to know. I called Pac's daughter's mother that afternoon. I told her Lena's father had been brave. I told her about the tooth fairy resume. I did not tell her about the closet. Some truths are not gifts. I do not work nights anymore. I work days at a clinic 2 towns over, where nothing alarms in the basement because there is no basement. I keep the black marker from that shift in a drawer at home. I have not opened the drawer in a long time. Devin and I still talk. We do not talk about the floor. We talk about other things. That is how we survive the second time, which is the harder time, which is the time after. I stayed smart. I went home. I am still keeping the promise.